Hey, what's up, everybody? I am going live here in Dumaguete, and I just wanted to do a welcome video. Thank all the new subscribers from Mike's Philippine Retirement. Shout out to Mike. And from Old Dog New Tricks, Paul. Shout out to Paul. Both of these gentlemen have been incredible mentors to me in a very short time, both so yeah, I think the timer reset. I'll go ahead and repeat what I just said. Welcome, welcome. Um, First off, I want to thank everybody and welcome everybody who is coming from Mike's Philippine Retirement, and then also Old Dog New Tricks. I owe a great deal of thanks to both Mike and Paul for collaborating with me. They both have a lot of insight, and I see both of them as fantastic mentors for myself. They've both been very selfless and generous with not only collaborating with me, but also the insight behind the scenes. They've shared a lot with me that I feel like I'll carry with me for the duration of my time here on YouTube. It's just the amount of analysis and thought and effort that they put into their channels is just it's brilliant. I mean, I have such a deep appreciation for the craft, and I think that the things that I'm learning from me will help me to elevate the content that I bring to you all as my audience. Yes, and thank you so much, Tony. Tony has been a great supporter of the channel for a long time now, and really appreciate his encouragement. How are you doing today, Tony? It's Monday morning for you. It's the start of the week. I'm got an interview in about 2.5 hours with a fintech company, but yeah, just aside from that, nothing major. Really, just trying to focus on the channel. I've got an interview I recorded with Paul that I'll probably edit tomorrow. Probably tomorrow I'll go to Tom and Tom's Cafe and um, and then I've got another one with some young folks I ran into who are cosplayers on the boulevard in Dumaguete. So they actually dress up as anime characters, and I just had to approach them. So I chatted with them for about 20 minutes. Really talented young folks, and so yeah, the one I did with Paul, that'll probably come out probably Thursday because I put out the one with Mike tonight. I'd like to give that a few days. And then the one with the cosplayers, I'll try to have it done by Sunday. But yeah, thank you so much, Tony. Uh, Paul is just an incredible storyteller. The kind of the way I differentiate Mike and Paul is that Mike is really fantastic at creating what I call the how-to guide. If you want a step-by-step assessment of how to go from being in the United States or North America, Canada, like it's in your case, Tony, or perhaps you're in the UK, Australia, New Zealand. Mike's got this. He comes from like a really interesting background, and he has this really great way. And I think a lot of his insight could apply to a lot of different countries. So obviously, he's chosen the Philippines, but I think a person could apply the same methodology to a lot of different expat destinations. And then with Paul, he's just got this really great storytelling ability. He just has a way of creating this narrative, and we actually sat down for several hours and really got to know each other because I actually reached out to Paul about five years ago. I think it's really surprising for Paul because he's talked to a lot of people. But I saw him sort of land in the Philippines and really start his channel, and it's been incredible to watch his progression since then. I've seen him go from, frankly, being a bit haggard, right? Run down, worn down. He had a lot of challenges that he's discussed in past videos. And, you know, he's just got such a warm kind of vibe these days that you can tell he's really overcome a lot, and he's improved his happiness. And so now somebody said these guys aren't saints. I will never come on here and tell you, oh, this Mike, he's a saint, or oh, this Paul, he's a saint. I don't see them that way. I think that what they are two guys who managed to overcome a lot of challenges in their lives. And that if a person who's dealing with their own challenges in the West watches them, then they'll get some kind of insight from how to overcome their own challenges. I don't look at their channels as, uh, you know, what's the word? Showing these two guys with perfect lives. I think it's two guys who had challenges, and they're just examples, right? I'm going to be meeting with several other vloggers in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, just let's see. Last part of that interview discussing the therapeutic aspects. Oh, by the way, we've got 4 viewers on here. Everyone, feel free to chime in and share your thoughts or questions or comments, not just on the interview that I had with with them, but also, or the interviews I had with them, but also just in general. I'm all open to whatever the audience would like to discuss. So I'll tie it back into Tony's comment here, discussing the therapeutic aspects of the Philippines, finding a community fellowship, becoming visible and affirmed as a person by the social aspect of the Philippines. Yeah, I mean, for me here, I can get as little socializing as I want or as much as I want. If I'm in the mood for less, it'll be a day that I'll just spend more at my place here. I could interact a bit with my host family here. Very, very sweet lady, Juanita here. I'd like to interview her. Now, I have to ask, I haven't brought up the idea to her, but she's just such a strong person. I mean, she's just a strong person, and she's been very honest with me and very kind and very warm. In some ways, kind of a mother figure, if I'm being transparent. Just a sweet lady. But even if she doesn't, I'll brag on her a bit. So yeah, if I wanted just a chill day, I could just chill here and hang out here, and it's it's just a really laid back environment. But now, if I'm craving more, I can walk up the road to Darwin, and in Darwin, there's some great pizza places. I tried one of them. There's of course some nice restaurants as well. There's this almost like carnival I walk by. So that's a little bit more, right? I can interact a bit with the staff at these places, but maybe I don't see somebody I recognize because I don't spend as much time in Darwin. Now, if I'm wanting another step up, I go down to the boulevard in Dumaguete, and why don't I pull up a map here just to give you guys a sense of where I'm talking about. Yes, so here's the boulevard. If you ever hear about Dumaguete vloggers talking about the boulevard, it's generally they're talking about Rizal Boulevard. You've got quite a few nice restaurants up and down the strip. I'm a fan of this spot, Sans Rival Bistro. It's really reasonable. I mean, we're talking, they have a great like kind of combination meal where you get an entree, a drink, and dessert, and a soup or salad for 280 pesos. So about $5 to have their combination. It gets you a little bit of everything. But the nicer part to me, even more so than the restaurants, which are good, is just walking up and down this boulevard, and they've got this nice park here, this parklet. It's a little bit hard to, yeah. So they've got like people that set up and play chess. They've got a lot of different, mostly local people during the week. You got some expats and foreigners, but then on the weekend, it's really a lively scene. You see tons of people down there. I think they're out there even until midnight. I usually wrap up around 10 p.m. It's like usually a half-hour ride back to my place, and by then I'm pretty much ready to go to bed. But it's such a nice community setting. I mean, I just meet person after person after person, and I can just talk to anybody. Even if it's just simple hello, I try to greet people and people smile, and the social scene is just incredible. It's like nothing I've ever experienced anywhere in the world. It's there's a lot of comparable scenes throughout the Philippines, but Dumaguete is definitely up there as far as offering opportunities to socialize. Uh, Thank you for catching that, Tony. I'm sorry to hear about the screen being black, but thank you so much for calling that out. It's definitely good to know. Um, oh, hey, Captain Trucker, welcome, welcome. Shout out to Captain Trucker. If anybody is not familiar, check out his channel. He is an American, uh, and he's got some strong. He's got a great channel. A huge fan of Captain Trucker. It's funny, Trucker, but actually, I mentioned your channel to several vloggers here in Dumaguete, and they're familiar and they watch your channel. So yeah, Trucker's got a lot of original content. He's got a different perspective. I think that's partly why his channel is growing so fast. Definitely recommend his channel. He's got oh, Trucker, I did want to call something out. I have had some issues with PayPal. I greatly appreciate the support that you've provided to me. Um, I may have to link with you and ask you to cancel that one and share my Venmo with you, because I just had some issues with PayPal. I've actually probably got to call them tonight to try to get it unblocked. They're a little bit overzealous in my experience. Um, yeah, I think a lot of people are familiar with your channel. Even though I think you're not as Dumaguete focused, right? There's a lot of guys that Dumaguete is their total area of focus. They live, eat, breathe Dumaguete. Then I think what people find refreshing, actually, Trucker, is that you're not a Dumaguete vlogger. So if you're, if you're a person who's vlogging in Dumaguete, you've got a bunch of other people that you're competing with. Where for you, then it's you're doing I don't want to say more original content, because I think everybody's got their own take on Dumaguete, but there's less overlap, right? I mean, if somebody maybe they've got a couple of guys they watch from Dumaguete, they're not looking to add more to that rotation, then they've got your channel. And yeah, Trucker is like wholesome, and he's also got the tie of having a Filipino son, and I think it's yeah, I think he's great. I think if you're looking for interesting content, check out Trucker. So, um, yeah, definitely, Trucker. And there's some potential for interesting collaboration. I mean, I know you're starting to kind of branch into collaboration, but I think that there's several guys here who would have some interesting synergies with you and your insight and your perspective. Uh, yeah, I've got a couple more on the radar. Um, oh wow! Okay, great, great. Yeah, great to see you. Also recommend checking out A Foreigner Asking Questions in the Philippines. Yeah, that's one of the people, Captain Trucker, that mentioned that he's a fan of your channel. Um, yeah, it's Trucker is BA for sure. Um, but yeah, Tony, I mean, I definitely agree with the affirmations that you experience here in the Philippines. It's just it's such a community minded place where like everybody is included. It's such an inclusive environment, and coming from like the Burning Man world, which to me at times seemed to become more and more elitist, um, even though inclusivity is like part of the ethos of Burning Man, for whatever reason, I feel like it's still a thing here. I feel like people of all ages, of all backgrounds, of all socioeconomic statuses, different professions, they are included here. Sometimes you see people down on their luck, and yet they still get politeness, they still get respect. And there's something that Western culture could really learn from the Filipino people as far as just being an inclusive population, very warm-hearted, kind-hearted. Um, Tony says, "I think you uncovered some hidden kernels of what many are searching for, but don't know what it is." Yeah, it's hard to like really put words to it, Tony. I was searching for it in Thailand, and I found it to some degree in Thailand, but the language barrier, right? I mean, even though I had numerous moments of connection with Thai people, it was heavily contextually based, right? We would be there experiencing the moment together. We'd laugh, we'd smile, we'd make eye contact. But there's still that, like, with the language in the Philippines, there's no ambiguity. There's no like second guessing or like, I'm not sure if I know what they mean. No, like we know like what our counterpart in conversation means, and it's just so much fun. Like it's I felt like in the US, at times I'm so lonely that I'm almost at times desperately seeking connection. Yet here it's like, okay, I know when my cup's full of socializing, right? I've had my fill and it's time to call it a night. That's not really an experience I have as much in the West. And I'll jump back and forth because I want to get to some of Trucker's insights. Thanks for the feedback. Had no idea people watched me there. Yeah, Trucker. It was, it was surprising to me because you mentioned in some of our conversations on your channel that you weren't really a Dumageddon focused vlogger. You hadn't made it down here, but I think that just the quality of your content, your honesty, your channel doesn't come across as salesy. Like I don't feel like I'm watching a sales pitch or something like that. Um, I think also a lot of guys can relate, right? I mean, like being a driver can be a grind. And a lot of guys that they're in the position to stay here long term, they've done the grind. I mean, I've had this conversation with both Mike and Paul where I told them, like, no jealousy here. You guys put in your time. You guys did your time. You guys had long careers where you were in go, go, go mode for decades, right? And so for us young guys, we got to put in our time too. And seeing them overcome those challenges, um, it's a reminder that while we're seeing them get to experience their dream, like our dreams, it's possible for us to make our dreams too. And I think in some ways we're what's the word I'm looking for, like uh we're how to explain it, like we're getting to get some tastes and some of those discovery trips in a time with the internet. Whereas when they were our age, they didn't have the luxury of the internet, right? Or the internet was in its infancy. You couldn't just go and research about Dumaguete or Cebu City or any of these wonderful places, countries, etc. You remind me of this guy I went to school with years ago. They were twins. That's funny. I'm hearing that more and more. I don't know exactly what's causing it, but I'm hearing more and more that I remind people of someone they know. Um, Maybe it's because I watch too much content, and so that influences like my speech and some of the topics I discuss. And you mentioned I liked your speech on the narcissism of expats. Yeah, I mean, it's an unfortunate reality. Like something that I've heard before, and I'll echo it, is you don't really have to worry as much about the local people. Um, your bigger concerns, or in my opinion, your bigger like threats, are going to be more often from expats. Like I think one of the things that I heard, and this is from a channel, so I'll give credit where it's due, but a channel I watch from time to time. His name's Brett Dev. He said, a local person might rip you off for 100 baht on a a tuk-tuk ride, whereas an expat might sell you a business that doesn't exist. So these are two very different scales. The local individual may be just trying to feed their family. The expat is trying to continue a lifestyle, in what they deem as paradise. So you have to be, and I'm preaching to the choir a bit, Trucker, because I think you're very familiar with this. You're an experienced expat, but we really have to be cautious about that, right? Because I think there's this like desire. There's this desire to connect with people from our home countries, right? I mean, even in a country like the Philippines, where many of the local people have great English, we like some of those shared experiences. We like hearing about, oh, this was your milestone experience, right? 16, you got your first car. You got your first job doing this kind of job that may not exist here in the Philippines. There's just these experiences that we can bond with other expats on. But bad expats, bad actors can misuse those connections, right? I mean, I remember I've got a story to share about I would call a somewhat narcissistic expat I ran into in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. Why don't we pull up Phnom Penh here? We'll just zoom out here and go to Phnom Penh. I was here on the riverside in I think it was Sisowath Riverside Park. And this gentleman identified himself as American and walked up to me and tells me he's from New York City, and then asked me where I'm from. And then now I told him I came here from San Francisco area. I'm not originally from San Francisco, but especially 5 years ago, nobody'd heard of Nashville. Now I think that's changed. But anyway, I'm telling him, I came here, I was living in California. And he's telling me, oh, really? I'm from San Francisco. So right off the bat, he's told me he's from New York. Now he's from California. So first off, like, when you're new to a country, you don't have any friends in that country. Maybe you make some friends, maybe you find a girlfriend, but when you're new, you got to be somewhat skeptical, right? And I'm a little bit less skeptical of YouTubers because I can go often. I've already watched their channel. I know what they're about. I've made a determination. Do I like this person enough to have a conversation, or is it just more of a polite, nice to meet you? But anyway, in Phnom Penh, this guy, I immediately in the back of my mind, I'm thinking he's going to ask for money. So then he brings up he's a musician and his reed is broken. He needs money for a reed. And I just said, yeah, good luck with that, man. I got to roll. And so I headed out. So then I walk down the street, and 15 minutes later I come back, and now he's talking to a local Cambodian person, and he's starting to go down the same story. And, I think that Cambodia gets perhaps less foreigners than, say, Thailand. And so I part of me wanted to interrupt and be like, dude, come on, just, give it up, right? Like, it's one thing to ask a foreigner from your home country for money. It's a whole nother thing to ask a local person. Like, have some shame. Because you as an American, you could go back, like in the case of this expat that approached me, you could go back to the US and work and earn more money. Like, somebody who's living in this country, this is where they're at, right? Like, there's no other country for them to go back to. This is where they live. They're a local person here. And so it's important to just be mindful that, even though we are striving for connection, I think that's what causes a lot of us to come to these other countries. Then we can't let our guard down all the way, right? We have to still maintain boundaries and think about the motivations of people who, might have ulterior motives. We have no idea who they are back in their home country. They might have a checkered past. They might be, running from some kind of issue for whatever reason. They've got to earn our friendship too, right? Trucker says, absolutely. We try to embrace the benefits of being a foreigner and an outsider can have its benefits and learning opportunities. Sometimes travelers don't try to adapt to new environments. Yeah, I think that's so powerful. Um, I think adaptation is important. Being considerate, like I definitely noticed here in Dumagetti, uh, I there, what's the word? Some people here have dealt with impatient foreigners. I notice sometimes a look of relief on the face of somebody who is, I'm engaging with them in a service capacity. It may be at a restaurant. It may be, um, at a, that's the most often case, but sometimes just at a service oriented business. And there's this look of relief when they tell me, oh, sorry, sir, out of stock, or, oh, it'll be a little bit of a wait. And, I'll let them know, oh, it's totally fine. Like, it's not your fault. Okay, so perfect example. I was at a restaurant yesterday, uh, 2 days ago. I was at a restaurant 2 days ago. It was a restaurant recommended to me by a friend. I ordered the mashed potatoes with my dinner. And after about 5 minutes, the waitress comes back and says, is this a we're out of mashed potatoes. We have potato wedges, we have garlic rice, and we have plain rice. And I said, oh, that's fine. The potatoes sound great. And the look of relief, like she was half worried. I was, oh my God, you're out of mashed potatoes. I can't believe this. This is, not only is this a just this over the top reaction that I'm sure she's observed or witnessed before, of an expat or a Westerner who just can't believe they would disrespect him by not having his mashed potatoes. And I'm thinking, no big deal, you know. They ran out. I'm sure a lot of people like mashed potatoes. I'm sure a lot of people that day had ordered mashed potatoes, and they just ran out, and that's totally fine. And the potato wedges were good. I enjoyed them. They were a little bit different than the mashed potatoes, but if they were out of that, I would have gone with the garlic rice. If they were out of that, I might have asked for extra vegetables, right? Because they had some green beans and some carrots that they served alongside the dish that I ordered, but not a problem at all. Not a end of the world situation. I think that when you come to any country outside of your home country, it doesn't matter what country. I feel like, and this is something that I've learned and heard from Paul and Mike, and I agree with it 100%. You got to bring patience. We always are talking about budgets and how much money you should bring, but you got to bring patience. Understand things work a little bit differently. There's certain ingredients that are imported that they can't just call up somebody in Idaho and say, hey, load up the truck. We're out of potato, or we're going to be out of potatoes early. Potatoes are imported, right? I've talked to a few expats about this. It seems like there's some kind of consensus here where any potato dish you get here in the Philippines probably ain't coming from the Philippines, right? Probably is on in a boat or an airplane, and so we just have to be mindful of that. And the service staff is the last person in line, right? They're not in charge of growing the potatoes. They're not in charge of ordering the potatoes. They're not in charge of cooking the potatoes. They're just a person, that day they happen to be out. Not a big deal. But yeah, it was just it was something that I felt like, man, like this is. I think it sucks that somebody was you know inconsiderate toward the staff, um, about something that's just not within their wheelhouse. Mm. Trucker says, I got to drive Albany, New York. Can't type, but I'm listening. Wonderful, Trucker. Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. Like I said, shout out again to Trucker. Anybody who's a fan of my channel, I think they'd also enjoy Trucker's channel. I spent some time in Albany, gosh, 10 years ago, and that was an interesting weekend. It was for this festival called the Hudson Project, which turned into the Mudson Project, and probably the worst festival I've ever been to. If you've ever heard of music festivals or you're familiar with that scene, it was on the same grounds as Woodstock '99, and yeah, huge storm came in. It was just a wild scene. But I'm gonna catch back up on Tony's last comment here. Tony says many guys that go there talk about their invisibility in the US and their feelings of being a non player character back home, but coming to the Philippines, being made to feel affirmed and recognized. Yeah, I think, Tony, and this is one I could really go on a while about, is that, um, you know, it seems like life is so fast paced in the West that we just don't have time to acknowledge each other as much. I think some of it is age related, Tony. I'm going to just validate what you're saying there. I do think that there's this, okay, you put in the work, okay, time for you to go in the trash. I need to ask Paul about this, but I think a funny thumbnail, we're not going to actually do this. I could maybe Photoshop it, but Photoshop him standing in a trash can. Like, you've done your time to just, we're done with you, right? We've extracted everything out of your battery's worn out, we don't have a need for you anymore. And that's something that is not the case in the Philippines. In the Philippines, there's this idea of older people getting a certain level of respect. Now, I want to add a caveat to this. Uh, Age is not solely a signifier to me of a quality person. A long time ago, when you had somebody that was an older person, the assumption was they had to do something right. Now, in the modern era, we have advanced healthcare, we have a lot of different treatments. There are some real dingbats that make it to an older age. That being said, there are a number of guys who are older than myself who have accumulated life experience, who have wisdom to impart. And so I'm receptive to that, right? I always try to be cognizant, like, hey, he's got 20 more years surviving this shindig than I do, or he's got 30. In the case of Mike, like 37 years more experience than I have. Paul, like 38 years, something like that. So close to 40 years more experience than I have, in the grind. And so, I've got to be mindful of that, and also in the expat sense, right? Because like it's not necessarily what I would call easy to move to a different country. I think visiting is one thing. I think most people could go to a Boracay or a Palawan or a Bonifacio Global City for a week or two and have a blast and not really, they're in vacation mode, right? They probably got a nice ride from the airport and a nice air conditioned cab. They're eating at the Western style restaurants. They might be eating imported beef from Australia. They may be staying in a nice resort with on-call staff, private beach. It's a whole nother thing to do day-to-day life mode in any of these countries because it's just not practical to replicate vacation mode. And so that's when you're taking on a different beast, and it's that much more valuable to get insight from guys like Mike, guys like Paul, who um, have made the blueprint and are excellent storytellers. And then now I think uh, there's guys like Trucker who are doing psychology and who are uh, bringing nuanced takes and like I don't want to say how to explain it. Having a bit more skeptical thought process towards some of our fellow expats, but not this drama, right? Like I think Trucker walks this fine line where he's able to have some critiques of expats, the impact that expats can make, without turning it into a troll channel. Because I don't like the troll channels either. I find that they're harmful. I find that they're hurtful. I find that they do an injustice toward a lot of these countries by just putting some negative energy out there, but I don't watch them. So that's how I do my part. Is if I think there's a channel that's oriented toward a bias toward negativity, I'm not going to feed that. I mean, the algorithm is impacted by what we choose to watch, and we've got to be mindful of that and make more conscious choices. Um, but yeah, Dumageddon just it's I get it. I totally get it. I didn't get it at first. I When I first rolled into town a few weeks ago, I was thinking, man, this is like where are the tall buildings? Like I've spent so much time in Bangkok and Chiang Mai. In past visits, I spent time in Cagayan de Oro and Cebu, and I'm looking around like where are all the tall buildings, and I don't see them. But over time, it took a day or two, but I got the charm. I went to Robinson's Mall. I'm like, this is a nice mall. When we scroll down here, Robinson's is, I think, where a lot of you, for your first time in Dumageddon, you'll naturally gravitate toward Robinson's. It's it's a nice size. It's got a couple of stories. It's got a decent variety. You've got several great restaurants there. There's a branch of Sans Rival. There's a branch of uh, I think they have a Jollibee there. They have several of your great chains. Greenwich, which I ate at today in the downtown Dumaguete location. But yeah, it's a nice place to go walking. The aircon is nice there. I definitely have done a bunch of laps around it over and over again during the heat of the day. If I find myself in downtown Dumaguete, it's like a 15-minute walk from downtown. I'll just go over there and just do laps and grab a bite to eat, and may stop by the ATM. I haven't seen a movie there yet, but I do want to see a movie at some point while I'm in town. Um, and a nice department store. You've got the Anchor Robinson's store here. I need to go by there actually and get a few things, but great options. Dingbats, no age at all. Absolutely, Gerard. I mean, uh, dingbats come in all ages, shapes, sizes. Um, yeah, definitely a reality of living abroad is you do get some unsavory characters at times. One sec, gotta plug in my charger here, my laptop. How's everybody doing tonight or today? Trucker says, that's a good thing to hear. When you remind people of someone, it means you are connecting on a higher level of human communication. Yeah, I think so. That's a great point, Trucker. Yeah, so one thing I wanted to pivot to is my next steps. So I'm loving Dumaguete. I really don't want to leave, but I have a couple of directions where I'm being pulled. One is that I want to go see my buddy in Malaybalay City. I've talked about it several times. Let's see here. So he's over here in Mindanao. So it's about a 12-hour journey. He's here in Malaybalay, Bukidnon, and I've been wanting to see him. I haven't seen him in 5 years. So the last time I actually got to see him was 5 years ago, and we've been in touch ever since. And he's just he's part of what sold me on the Philippines. I think a lot of guys they get sold on the Philippines by the vloggers, right? They watch a lot of vloggers and they're able to learn a lot and get a sense of what it's like as an American or Canadian, Australian to come over here and live, a Brit. And then others, they may go on like a dating website, right? And an online dating website platform like Tinder, and they meet a Filipina. But for me, it was my buddy. He was my virtual assistant, great guy, and um, we were just taught, in between talking about work, we'd talk about personal life, and he, was telling me, you got to come over here and meet a nice woman, and you got to come over here and see this beautiful country, and um, yeah, he sold me on it. So I came 5 years ago and loved the country. And part of the reason I put off coming here is I knew once I go back, I don't. It's going to limit me wanting to travel to other places. It's just the Philippines. The people are some of my favorite people in the world, and it's really hard to. I don't know. For me personally, it's hard to imagine to go to many more new places because I love this country so much. And so that's one direction, right? That's one direction that I'm being pulled in, is to go to Malaybalay. He wanted me to check it out last time, but I was in a hurry. I was here for like a month and I was jumping places every week or 10 days. This time I'd like to go for a month, rent an apartment in Malaybalay for a month. There's a vlogger, Expat Lifestyle. He did a good interview, a regular guy, a few months back. He's based in Malaybalay as well. So I'd like to meet up with him and chat. But yeah, so that's like, it is a 12-hour journey because it's going to be like 4-hour ferry to Dapitan in Zamboanga del Norte, and then I take like a bus from Dapitan all the way through Oroquieta, Asamis, um, around Panguil Bay, uh, through Iligan, and then to Cagayan de Oro, and then transfer in Cagayan de Oro to to Bukidnon. So then the other option is I'm talking to a woman based in Cebu, and I'd like to go see her. So how we met is that I was on the Boulevard in Dumaguete, and I'm talking to I basically I meet these students because they have these cool costumes on, and I wanted to compliment them because it looked like they put a lot of effort in their costumes. Then all of a sudden their principal comes up and I start talking to their principal. Then their principal is trying to set me up with one of his vice principals. um, and that conversation ends, and then I start talking to these other students, and then I just randomly meet another lady, and then this other lady, she's telling me, okay, you got to meet my nieces. So she's got two nieces, and so she connected me with the two nieces, and one I was able to add on Facebook. The other, her profile was limited to just messaging, and so anyway, I started talking to one of her nieces, and we just have great chemistry. She's just she's a really nice person, and we've been talking every single day and getting along well. And so she's based in Cebu City, and so those are the two directions I'm being pulled in. I do want to see my buddy, but I also want to go meet this woman, and it's a little bit tricky because it's easier the way the infrastructure works. It would be easier for me to go meet her and then fly down to Cagayan de Oro and take a bus to Malaybalay versus the reverse, where if I go to Malaybalay, what's more likely for me to have to happen is either go back to Cagayan de Oro, uh, which may have to happen anyway because I'd need to go to immigration, or what I prefer to do is go down to Davao City, check out Davao City for like a week or something like that, and then fly to Cebu. So I lean towards Cebu because naturally, like, I want to see her, and if I get a job offer back in the States, then I'm gonna have to dip, right? And so it would be disappointing to not see her because, yeah, she's just a really nice person. I don't know how much, like, if I meet her and everything, I don't know how much I'd feature her on my channel. I would want to respect her privacy. I also know as the channel grows, I will get some trolls. I I want to protect her from that, if that's the direction things go. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at, is trying to determine next steps. Do I want to go down to Malai Balai, where there's some great opportunities for me to meet with my friend? Also, there's 7 tribes in Malai Balai of indigenous groups, and he's talking about how we could do some content with them. There's also a pineapple farm that I want to check out down there, and it's yeah, it's just super appealing. So that's kind of where I'm at, Cebu or Malai Balai. I've been to Cebu before, but I was only there for like a week or so, maybe 10 days. So didn't get the full month experience in Cebu, which this time I would be getting that full month experience there. Um, but then she wants to go to Bukidnon at some point. So who knows? Maybe I go up there and we spend time, and then maybe we that's a trip that happens for the both of us. But things are just up in the air. It's such a hard decision. Captain Trucker says, "Meet the woman." I think that's a good call, Captain Trucker. She's yeah, she's just such a bright woman, and she's got a great sense of humor, and she's yeah, she's just really sharp. She's also seen a lot more of the Philippines than I have. That's something that I really like about chatting with her, is she's been to a lot of different parts of the country, and so there's just a lot for me to there's a lot for me to learn from her. And to be fair, there's a lot for me to learn from my buddy as well. But there's just certain synergies there, and of course, like it's I'd be lying if I didn't say that dating was part of my love for this country, or intrigue about this country, is like the potential to meet a long-term partner, a serious partner, somebody that I'd be making a commitment to. It's it's certainly appeal for a lot of guys, and I'm not gonna certainly not gonna apologize for uh, my desire. Yeah, trucker. I lean toward that, and it's possible. Like I said, very easy to fly from Cebu to Davao. Take a bus up to Malay Balay. I like the one of the things that I want to experience about Malay Balay is it's up in the mountains, and I really would like a taste of that cooler weather. I've been in Southeast Asia this trip for like over a year, and the heat and humidity, like sometimes I do miss that cooler weather. Like yeah, it's tough, but I lean toward meeting her. Yeah, I lean toward meeting her. Tony asks, great question, Tony. The attention you are getting from women, people trying to introduce you to women, is this that the same amount you get in other countries? You get more in the PH. To be honest, way more in the Philippines. I think there was some of that in Thailand. Okay, I'll be fair here. There was some of that in Thailand, but the language barrier made it a bit challenging. I do have some Thai female friends that speak great English. I enjoy their company. Just like hanging out. It's platonic. There's as far as my Thai female friends, there's been no romance there, and I haven't broached that subject. Certainly, they haven't either. Like I get the impression, if it's something that I were interested in pursuing, that would be a possibility. But it's I see them as platonic friends. I have such great friendships with them too. Like the there's some elements of Thai culture that are similar to East Asian culture, and so that's where we connect. I I like Filipino culture because it's different than East Asian culture in some ways. I think it's more complementary in some ways, whereas sometimes with my Thai female friends, it feels like we butt heads a little bit because of our similarities. I don't get that as much with Filipinas. Mm, but yeah, Tony, I think I get a lot more of that here because there's a few things. One, I think the culture is romantic. I think the Filipino culture in general is just very romantic. I think that there's a general belief that most people should be in a relationship, especially if you're a good guy and you have pro-social characteristics or qualities. I think that there's this, there's this sense that like you could treat somebody well, and you could bring happiness to their life, and it's like mutually beneficial scenario where the sum of the parts is, the whole, like the couple is better than the pair as individuals. And so I do feel that way. I also feel that there's a genetic component, right? I mean, if you're on an island, then on some level, there's got to be some risk of, genetic overlap. I'm not saying that in a pejorative way. I'm not saying that in a disrespectful way. I found that it's, I think it's just there's intrigue, right? There's interest, like there's interest in different kinds of people, and like it's the Filipino is a nationality. That's the way for me to put it. It's a nationality. It's not a race. Filipinos come in many different shapes, sizes, colors. There's indigenous Filipinos. There's Chinese Filipinos. There's Indian Filipinos. There's Indonesian Filipinos. I think some of the indigenous Filipinos are what you would call Austronesian. But yeah, Filipinos are really a diverse group, much more so than I think the outside world conceptualizes. And part of what adds to that diversity is different people from different places mixing in with the local people. And as somebody who is mixed race, definitely I feel accepted here in that way. Like you see a lot of Filipinos who seem to have or appear to have mixed ethnicity or different kinds, coming from different kinds of ethnic backgrounds. And in some places that may not be as welcome. I feel very welcomed in that regard. I haven't felt any, like people ask me, where are you from? I tell them United States. They might ask a little bit more about my ethnic background. I tell them I'm Indian and Japanese, and oh, that's so interesting, because I think they also are acquainted with people that like maybe say half Filipino, half Japanese, or half Filipino, half Korean. Gerard says you'll never forgive yourself if you don't make the effort to meet her and share some time together, share a meal. That's a good point, Gerard, because like the chemistry there is just interesting. I think that she comes from a good family just based on context clues, based on her interests, seeing her pets, seeing how well they're taken care of, like the dogs look super healthy. She's, knowing that she and I, just some of the things we talked about, we have a lot in common. We have some of the important things in common, I think, as far as just like future interests. One area where we may differ is like she's definitely interested in having a family. I'm more of what I'd call a fence sitter. I worry about just being fully transparent. I worry about my ability to provide. Does that entail me working more in the US? I don't know that I could count on YouTube to take off. It's something that I'm very cognizant of due to my challenging background. I don't want to bite off more than I can chew. I don't want to make a commitment like, oh yeah, we'll start a family, and then I'm not able to provide the resources that a family requires, right? And I think a lot of guys have that concern, right? I mean, it's a big responsibility. It's not a responsibility I take lightly. And so that's something we'll have to discuss further. It may, like I said, it may entail me going back to grad school. Maybe I could support that on a higher income. It's also, it's like, okay, does that entail, bringing her to the US eventually? I'm not sure how I feel about that because one, I'm not as a happy person in the US. I think that the US is hard on a lot of relationships. I think that the individualistic nature of the US is such that it's just naturally going to be hard on relationships. People they have a lot of financial pressure. There's a lot of pressure at work. Um, Housing is very, very expensive. It's um, it's a lot to think about, and she and I are on the same page. I've been as honest as possible with her, and trying to be as clear about my thoughts about the future and intentions as possible, because um, I just want what's best for her. And if that's uh, if there's a different foreigner that's better prepared, I think that that's not the end of my world. I'm in a much better place than I was when I'm younger. I'm happy on my own. Like, I know that sounds strange. I don't think I'm at optimum happiness, but I am generally happy on my own. I've come to develop a sense of healthy self love, and I don't want to force a relationship and bring in unrealistic expectations, and yeah. So, like, there's still a lot of discussion. We've still got to link up. We just chat so much. I mean, we talk for like hours. She and I do. Even when, like, she gets break from work, um, and she has dated a foreigner in the past. So that's another. Some people look at that as a negative. I personally don't, because there's there's a better sense of, like, foreigners are different from Filipino people. There's a lot of adaptation and adjustment foreigners have to make that a local person doesn't have to make, right? And so there's that level of patience that comes with that. But I don't mean to be all negative on this either. I mean, I think, like, worst case scenario, I've made a wonderful friend. She and I have that kind of chemistry where, like, we get along in a friendly way. So, um, yeah, I'm not I'm not in a rush to get married. Some people were telling me, don't get married, don't get married, don't get married. Marriage is forever in the Philippines. It's not something to be taken lightly in this country, for sure. It's an institution that's put on a very and held in very high regard, and so she and I are on the same page in a lot of ways, and yeah, I look forward to meeting her and spending time with her. Tony says, not going to lie, the lure of going to the Philippines and getting attention from women, the possibility of meeting, dating multiple women is very appealing for us, invisible average guys in the West. Yeah, Tony, I mean, and it's also like, it's just a generally young country. I mean, I look at the United States, the average American is like 39 years old. Here, the average person is more like 28 years old, 27 years old. And so when you go out, you just see like tons and tons of young people, and it's just so different from the West, where one, a lot of people are settled down. I mean, I think Mike talked about that in my interview with him, where he's saying, I think the truth is a lot of the good ones are taken in the West, and I would agree with that. I mean, I've met a lot of wonderful women in the West who are married, who are in a committed relationship. That, man, I wish she was single, but because she's not, I got to respect that. That's in a young country, like, there's just going to naturally be more people who haven't settled down, or maybe some people who they're single, they dated somebody for a while, they broke up, they didn't meet the right person yet. So there's just, like, I don't know, more of an optimistic attitude. And I think the bar is also just super high in the West. I mean, I think exposure to popular media has really skewed people's expectations in general, not just women for men, by the way. I think male expectations in the West can also be out of whack. I think you look at something like certain forms of entertainment, online entertainment, that have skewed some men's expectations. They see an airbrushed woman who has had various augmentations and things like that, and they think, oh man, if I'm going to settle down, she better look like that. When that's not really reality, right? That's not really a realistic image, or uh, thing to think about for. So I think it goes both ways. Now, of course, majority of my viewers are male. I'm going to speak more to the male experience, and I think in that regard, Tony, yeah, I think somebody who is a good guy, who has a lot of great qualities, who's stable, who's developed themselves right, has worked on their career, has looked after their health and well-being, who has a lot of insight to share, right? I mean, you had, like, all guys have had some missteps that I think if you're dating a woman in good faith who's younger than you can share some of those missteps with her. Hey, this is a mess up I had. Like, hey, this is something that I found was valuable. Sharing your insight, sharing your life experience is is something that I think a lot of people here value. They value the experiences and insight of older people, um, in a way that's just not as common in the West. And I think it's worth a discovery trip. I tell everybody this, like, I'm not telling you move to the Philippines, it'll change your life. I think, Mike and I had a conversation. We discussed that in our latest video, where, uh, I think at one point I misstepped and I was like, oh yeah, this is paradise, or this is a great solution for everybody. He's like, oh no, no, it's not. Some guys, it's not going to be right for some guys. I think it is worth a discovery trip. I think it is worth checking out and having a look around, maybe scheduling a few weeks trip here, maybe a month trip here, doing something like this is personally what I would suggest: picking three places and doing 10 days in each, or four places in a week in each. So maybe you land in Cebu. I'm preferential to Cebu, but Manila is an option. Just taking a week there to get over your jet lag. Then maybe you come down to, well, maybe you fly out to Puerto Princesa, Palawan. You have a week traditional style vacation. Maybe then you try a week in like a Dumaguete, where it's a small city, right? It's not going to be your Cebu or your Manila, but it's going to have some conveniences. The traffic's not going to be so bad. It's you got some ferry, like a ferry over here to Sikihor, which is a very popular destination. I need to get over there. Maybe this weekend. Maybe, like, well, it's a lot more popular on the weekend. Maybe like Wednesday or Thursday or something. I've got so much to do. I really got to make it over there at some point though. And Apo Island is also on the radar. Apo is down here. Look at that turtle. And then, finishing up with, like, I don't know, a week in. It's a good question. Maybe, but maybe of the three that you visited, you go back for a week. But yeah, it's kind of choose your own adventure in the Philippines. I feel like you can't go wrong. There's so many different cool places to see. There's 7,000 islands in the Philippines, and then around 1,000 are inhabited. So you've got a solid variety of choices. Your preferences though. So, like, if you're a big city person, you might want to focus on a Manila or a Cebu. I think also, if you're oriented toward dating, Manila and Cebu are going to be your best options. I've got to kind of go back on something I said, Tony. And one of the things that I said in my initial impressions of Dumaguete is that I think it's fine for dating. I don't think that's as much the case. I think it's a place that once you've met a significant other, then you might want to, bring your SO to Dumaguete. But Dumaguete, there's just so many foreigners here. There's a lot of committed women here. It's the population's a couple 100,000, right? So out of that, you take out 100,000 because half the population's dudes. Let's say you take out a third of what's left because they're not of appropriate age. You take out another third of what's left because they're above what your age range is, and then of that remaining third, how many are committed? So now you're down to, like, not as large of a number. So if you're wanting to meet, somebody for a relationship, Cebu has a lot of single women who've moved up there for work. Or Manila, same deal. A lot of women who've moved up there from all over the country to work. So you've got kind of an influx of people consistently churning into the city that are looking for a relationship, are open to dating somebody, and are not yet committed, right? TJ Riley, welcome to the channel. Critter Republic does dives at Apo Island. Shout out to Critter Republic. I actually walked by his spot in Darwin the other night, but it was nighttime, so I didn't enter. But the gates were open. I need to check him out though. Like maybe tomorrow night I'll go get some pizza up the road from Critter Republic, and then just go walk down there and introduce myself, shake some hands, uh, just see what's up about his establishment. But yeah, that sounds like a great opportunity to check out Oppo. I'm still a little bit shy about diving, so I tried some diving in Mexico, and it wasn't the best experience. To be honest, there was numerous reasons for that. So I'm a little bit panicky. I would have to do a course, I think, before I commit, which I know Critter does offer some courses. I'm not sure if the timing is going to be right for this trip, but yeah, absolutely beautiful. I mean, look at this coral, this marine life. It's just stunning. That looks kind of like a face. That's interesting. Oh, I love the clownfish. That reminds me of some other places I've been in the Philippines. These are some of the most beautiful fish for me to personally to spot. I know they may not be the rarest, but I just love the Finding Nemo vibes, right? That's what it reminds me of a lot is Finding Nemo. I didn't see a sea turtle last time. That would be super cool. But guys, I'll probably wind down here shortly. We've been going for over an hour here, and my voice is starting to go because I had a super lengthy conversation tonight with one of my new buddies who I met here a couple of weeks in Dumaguete, and I know I've got a lot more talking to do this week, and I need to drink some water. Why don't I have some water? That might help a little bit. I just caught your interview with Old Dog. Well, thank you so much, TJ. I'm greatly appreciate you check that out. He's a real gem. Yeah, Paul's a real gem, and I'm super appreciative that he's willing to collaborate with somebody like me. I'm still a YouTuber, and yeah, ciao, Alex. Look forward to the next one. Thanks so much, Tony. Yeah, I've got one that I need to edit. So I actually, and this is a great segue into kind of wrapping things up for tonight. I turned the camera on Paul, so I actually have a video I've recorded with Paul, uh, and asking him some questions, and we had some banter as well. And so that's the next one up in my queue to edit. So I'll probably pull the files over tonight, and then do most of my editing tomorrow. But thank you so much for your membership, Tony. Really appreciate the support. It helps to bring this content to the lovely audience. At some point, Tony, too, I'm happy to do a members only stream. I think I'd have to schedule it at a convenient time for you because we're still we're still early on in the membership phase, and so I think that would give you a great opportunity to ask lots of different questions. Thank you so much, TJ. Yeah, it's never too late to start the rest of your life. I absolutely agree. It's we're all learning and we're all growing. There's coming here has really helped me a lot with personal growth and just seeing the resilience of the people and the strength of the people. It's such an incredible country, and I feel so fortunate to be able to spend time here. I know it's a great privilege, and that many people around the world are watching blogs here, and they dream of coming here. And I hope that it's as healing for them as it has been and continues to be for me. But yeah, thank you so much for your subscription, TJ, and I appreciate you joining the channel. And yeah, thanks so much, everyone. So to kind of wrap it up, if you're watching this on replay, you want to see more content like this, please subscribe to the channel down below. Feel free to comment any questions or thoughts you have about Dumaguete. Always welcome feedback. Feedback is a gift for me. And if you haven't yet, you enjoyed this, give us a thumbs up. You can always give us a thumbs up after the stream. And thanks so much, Gerard. I look forward to chatting with everyone again. I'll probably do another stream mid to late week. Thanks so much, Foreigner Asking Questions in the Philippines. Check out his channel too. His channel is really good. He does interviews here in Dumaguete and beyond. So yeah, I'm so glad you enjoyed the stream, and I really appreciate that you think of me as a wealth of knowledge. I feel the same way. And yeah, until next time, I hope everyone has a great evening or a great day, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.